Hello and welcome to the Cutie Art Crusaders, episode 72 for November 19th, 2013. My name is Rainbow Plasma, I'm the organizer of this podcast, and today I'm joined by...
Burned1, and I'm the special guest coordinator of the podcast, and also this week I'll be editing.
I'm Flutterguy317, and I am the media manager for the podcast.
And I'm Atmospark, I'm Australian.
Yay!
So, you know...
and the questions.
Yeah, you do questions. Yeah, whatever, people know. So, this week you are actually editing, right, Burned?
Yes, this week
Just
I'm
to make
actually
sure.
editing. There will be a copious less amounts of Duskshine.
I do expect a song from you, Bund.
Did you like what I did last week, Burned?
No, I actually took that day off of work so I could work on something for school. So I stayed home and I watched the stream while I was like writing my paper, and in the stream that I was watching, and then that song like started, and I was like, no, stop, like no. So I was like, I was typing in the chat with everyone. I was like, no, kill me. God.
It was
That's
too
funny.
perfect.
It was beautiful.
What are you doing?
It's friggin' ridiculous.
I loved it. Well, over that last weekend, I figured out that I could edit, and Byrne was a little bit busy, so I decided to edit. And for whatever reason, I was falling asleep the night before I was editing, and I got that random thought in my head, and I wrote down the lyrics because I knew I wouldn't remember them in the morning. And so then I woke up and I did the editing in the morning.
I mean, you do love your Duskshine transitions, so
I do.
Yeah.
It went really well. I think that was. I unfortunately couldn't see the audience's reaction because I couldn't make it there on Tuesday. But I assume people had fun with that, right?
Yeah,
everyone cracked up. Yeah, I had seen that one edit beforehand, so I knew it was coming. But then you did another edit like later on, and it was just like
super speed.
Yeah, completely out of nowhere. And it was just like, I almost died.
I was like, damn it, not again. It was
it's so good.
We have fun.
Yeah,
we have fun.
We have fun here.
So
We do
before
have
we
fun
get
here.
into today's art, there was something that you wanted to talk about, Flutterguy?
Ponies. Specifically, new episode of season 4 comes out this upcoming Saturday,
Right.
the 23rd. Sunday for
Right.
you, because you're weird, because you're upside down. Which is awesome, and we're going to be starting our spoiler casts again next week because we're going to be basically doing that after each episode.
Yeah. So what we did last year, or I guess it was still this year, but last season, was we would tack on a little bit like a 20 to 30 minute thing after the episode, with our little spoiler cast at the end. We've been debating and talking a little bit about different formats for it, and should we separate them or should we keep them together? And we decided that we will keep it the same format, so it's all in one big video. So on the live stream, it'll go back to back, and then when we upload it to YouTube, it'll all be in one big video. And I think most people kind of prefer that anyways. So
Yeah.
that's how we're gonna do it.
So if you come to our stream and you haven't seen the episode and you don't want to be spoiled, you can just leave after the episode is over. And before
Yeah,
the spoiler cast.
and I think I'll probably update our little our little editing template, and maybe I'll add like a little 10-second spoiler warning or something.
Yeah. So that should be fun, though. I'm excited for that. And for season 4.
Yeah, I mean, when we're sitting down and recording, it's more than the week, so it's kind of a long way away, but it'll be even closer when this airs.
So I also hear that it's snowing up where you are, Rainbow Plasma.
Yes, it is snowing.
It's winter's here. I don't know if I'm excited or not for it. No, well, it's like it snowed a little bit, like flurries one day, and then it only lasted like 10 minutes. But
It snowed furries.
Flurries.
No, flurries.
I thought he said like McFlurries. I was like, oh, ice cream, sweet.
Well, that'd be way too
delicious.
delicious.
That'd be great. Just walk outside and get hit in the head with a cup.
By the way, sponsorship opportunity. Come on.
This week's themes is McFlurries.
Sponsored by.
I got a Twitter account, so everybody should Twitter me.
Yeah. Everyone Twitter at him. We don't know what we're
I
talking
am
about.
at Atmos Spark. I think
I still think you should have been at Mospark.
I should have been.
Yeah. You should.
I totally should have been.
That should have been really good. You should
Yeah.
remake your Twitter account. Go.
Yeah.
No.
Do it. You have two. It'll be double the fun.
I could have to.
No.
I could just tweet at myself all day.
I wasn't even aiming for that pun.
All right.
So, art. This week's theme is autumn because we're in the middle of autumn and we're kind of coming to an end of autumn. But
You mean spring? Right.
you and your upside down timey-wimey season things.
Every time
Yeah.
you mention anything that happens to do with North America, I'm going to refute it with my Australia.
Yeah, you'd think after, spending a year and a half with us, he would just give up on saying that. But no, he says it every time.
Every time.
Not even while we're recording. We'll say, "Hey, can you record on Friday like usual?" And he's like, "No, I can record on Saturday though."
He's
like,
like,
yes,
we'd
we
learn
know.
just to like speak differently.
No,
Well,
because then when we say Saturday, he says, "Well, I can't record on Sunday."
I'm surprised we haven't
You do
developed
speak
accents.
That does make sense.
Anyways,
Anyhow,
autumn.
So our first piece is called Apple Fall by Karzani, who I think we featured before, and who is a fantastic artist. I think so.
I believe Karzani is one of those artists that we've had a bunch of different things that we've wanted to feature, but we've never really gotten around to it.
I think we featured one.
Well,
I don't
her work
remember.
is definitely familiar, and she's got a
His
lot
work.
of different.
His work, yeah.
Whatever.
He was
I actually
also
thought
at-
it was a she, but
Yeah.
then if you go to DeviantArt, it says
It says unknown.
But then we were at BronyCon,
Yeah,
and I was
and
like,
he
"Oh
was
hi,
there.
I really like your art."
Oh, that's where,
I've come-
he drew on your playmat. I remember that, and it was really good.
Right.
Yeah.
I've come to learn that 90% of the time when I'm talking about pony art, I should just assume it's female, because my internet theory of assuming it's male until proven otherwise is usually wrong when it comes to pony art, because there's so many good
Yeah, that's
female
fair.
artists out there.
Yeah.
So I've started switching to, of course. Now that I've started switching, of course we've got someone who's male.
Yeah. Your whole world is upside down, almost like Atmosparks.
Yeah.
Hey, you guys are upside down with me. I'm
So-
looking down at your feet.
So this piece is very much autumn, just based
Such
on the
autumn.
color scheme.
Yeah.
I mean, when you think of autumn, you think of like these yellows and oranges and reds and like these deep kind of reds.
Mhm.
And this piece kind of really accentuates that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's really interesting when you think about seasons. A lot of times, people will associate certain colors with certain seasons,
Yeah, they will.
and it almost goes like a complete circle around the color wheel, which is a really interesting thing that happens. Some people will look at winter and they'll go, well, a lot of people look at winter and they might go, like whites for the snow, but they also go like icy blues and things like that. And when you get around to spring, it's more of like a greeny color or, something like that. And then you get around to summer and it's like a hot yellow or an orange. And then you get to fall and you've got these oranges and the reds. It's really interesting how we've come to associate different seasons with different colors.
Mm-hmm. Well, and it has to do with surroundings too, I think, because like in the autumn or the fall, you get the leaves changing to reds and yellows and oranges. And in the spring, it's, the leaves are green. And then obviously in the winter, snow and ice cast blue shadows and stuff. So
Yeah, it's interesting how it ended up working out that it kind of goes around a color wheel. It skips a few colors, of course. I don't think there's a season that's terribly purple, but
Dude,
but it does
there's
kind
such
of make
a pink
the circle
season,
around.
seriously. It's like it's following the color wheel, then you get to like February and it's like bam, Valentine's pink.
pink.
That's
Also,
true, I guess.
springtime in Japan because of all the cherry blossoms.
See, there you go.
Uh-huh.
That's cool. That's a good idea.
We-
I wonder.
I was
wonder
there
if
for that.
people would have different, like, depending on the culture. I wonder if people would have different colors for.
Absolutely, because you see autumn, like the oranges and the browns and stuff for the leaves. That doesn't happen where I live. Trees don't lose their leaves here. They're all evergreen, so that's not really a thing. I was going to mention that, but yeah, in the autumn here, it's just like every other season. Everything is still green.
Yeah, well, it's a little bit difficult to talk about seasons when the farther you get, or the closer you get, I should say, to the equator, because when you talk to someone from Southern California or from Northern Australia, suddenly, the seasons don't have a lot of difference between them, or at least not as much difference as places farther away from the equator.
Not so much in colors; it's more weather.
Right. But it's much less. Whereas where I am in Canada, it's all 4 seasons are very, very distinct. So it's interesting that you would say that, because seasons are not a universal concept really. It's different for everyone, and just based on where you live, how close you are to the equator, what your natural surroundings are. And I wouldn't be surprised if people in, say, Japan, like you said, would associate spring with pink instead of green.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We
Because
associate
cherry
things
blossoms
with
are everywhere.
we associate things with the world around us. So everyone has some different kind of experience that is visible through their art.
But I suppose that when you think about it, the majority of the internet would be focused around North America and Europe, which would be, primarily northern places that would see a lot of these changes, such as autumn or fall, right? That makes sense.
So now I have a question actually for Atmospark. Do you associate like these colors with the different seasons, even though like it's not around you? Like, because it to me it seems like there's a kind of a habitat effect where, like, if you live in the seasons, you kind of see the colors and stuff. But there's also kind of a pop culture or something like that with the internet.
I get what you're saying, and yes, because a lot of the culture here now is influenced by North America, by the US.
Western media,
So-
yeah.
Yeah, so a lot, like that's where a lot of the media in this country originates. In fact, in the Western world, originates from the US. So yes, people do here still associate autumn colors with autumn and snow with winter, which it doesn't snow here.
Yeah.
Well,
Right.
it does in some parts, but not.
Don't you have a mountain or
Not
something?
quite right.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have a few mountains. We're not flat like the States.
Well, it depends
Like-
on where you go in the States.
Yeah.
And we were out west and we saw plenty of mountains.
Yeah.
I was in Seattle and saw one mountain.
There's 2.
I just didn't show you the others. Sorry.
Yeah.
You and your
And
mountain
one
hogging.
kind of blew up, so I was like, whatever.
Well, yeah.
Just talking about this piece really quick, because we do want to move on to some other ones. I really like how in this piece there is kind of a minimalistic background. There's no real scene that they're in other than leaves around these 2 ponies, and it's got a really cool, very simple style to it, where you just have layers of different colors going back and back and back.
Mm-hmm.
So I really like that background. That to me, what this piece really the piece really stands out because of its background, and the style of that. I'd love to see almost like this would be a really cool like phone wallpaper.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Because it's vertical composition, and even if you like, I would be interested in seeing a version without the ponies or the extra leaves and just having that interesting background.
They're supposed to be falling, so that vertical composition helps with that.
Yeah. And the whole hair pushing upwards.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gives
I
it
really-
sense.
I really like Karzani's style, like because he goes for this minimalistic style a lot. But I also love the expressions that he gives to Applejack and Apple Bloom.
It's definitely the thing worth noting about his work is his cartoon style and how he draws and depicts his characters. Because it's lovely and always really cute and expressive. He also has some really cool painted works too. He does do like digital painting, and he has some really nice ones as well in his gallery. He's a very has a lot of styles that he actually makes. So experimentative. I think I made that word up.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's a made-up word.
Yeah.
Experimentative, I believe is the correct term.
I believe you are wrong.
No.
Okay.
I don't know.
Dusk shine transition.
So our next piece is called Applejack by Meow Meow, who we featured last week, but who does amazing work, and we just can't escape from their drawings and their art.
Did you Bern? Did you there was a certain artist that recently one of our friends, Nocturnal Pony, was talking to me about the fact that he told you about a certain artist.
Yeah.
Was that Meow Meow?
New. That was Sea Maggot.
Okay,
Yeah, that's
yeah,
what it
yeah.
was. Right,
I've known about Sea Maggot's work a lot, and we've actually featured it like once or twice. But he definitely mentioned it to me, and he was like, because he did these pieces, and I was like, oh yeah, like, I really like that piece, and that's how I made the purple episode, because I was like, how can I warp this into a theme? And I was like, this piece is really purple.
Purple.
And then in my favorites, there was like 3 other purple pieces, and I was like, oh hey look, yeah. Yeah.
So now you know the reason for the purple.
Yeah, exactly. We've mentioned it many times. We make themes around pieces, not pieces around themes.
Yeah.
Anyways, this Meow Meow, we've had featured on the show before, but this was probably the first one that we saw from her that we really looked at and said, wow, we want to feature this, because I think we're all kind of fans of this messy brushstroke that's done, and I mean it's kind of all over the place when you look at this here, and I really do love that kind of expressive style where she's just looking at a piece and going for it, and just when you look at the stuff in the front, when you look at the kind of bushes in the front, it's just kind of like blah. The outlines are all everywhere. I love it.
Yeah.
I like the
Awesome,
the clashing of different styles here. Like, you got the background, which is lineless, pretty simplistic. Then you got Applejack herself, which is, in terms of this piece, fairly detailed. Where you've got Cutie Mark, you got outlines everywhere, you got strokes and stuff in the eyes, you got shading, you got all of that, and then you got the bushes at the front, where it's just a blob of color and
Colours.
the very, very, very simplistic outlines.
Yeah.
Which makes, because you're not looking at them, you're looking at Applejack herself. If you then in the corner of your eyes, you can see, yeah, those are leaves.
Yeah.
Right. It's kind of like the leaves, in a lot of ways, aren't actually drawn to be leaves, but again, we kind of interpret them as leaves, because the ones in the background, they look like they're on trees, so we can assume they're leaves, and the ones in the foreground, kind of, when we look at the focus of the piece, Applejack, they kind of fade in, and our brain interprets them as leaves.
Exactly. Your brain adds in the rest. Like, if you're drawing a building that you want to be brick, you don't draw every single brick. You draw like 3 or 4 bricks, and then your mind fills in the rest.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
It's a good trick.
Yeah, a lot of it's the same concept with stuff like grass. A lot of newer artists will try to draw like every single blade of grass. It's like, don't do that. No.
No.
Just like
Artist,
you can
what are
do
you
so
doing?
much more with lending someone's imagination to fill in something like grass, because you don't have to draw every blade of grass. No.
Our brains are smart. They'll fill stuff in for us.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like that trick. Have you guys seen that trick where if you mess up the letters inside a word, but keep the first and the last letter the same, you can read the word perfectly?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As long as the letters are there.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's I'm gonna throw out a word, and immediately someone's gonna refute this, but I believe it has something to do with gestalt psychology. There's certain
He might be right.
I'll agree with you, because that's a big word I don't understand.
gestalt psychology, or the gestalt principles, really, is a bunch of different principles that kind of prove that our brain puts stuff together without stuff actually being there. For example, there's a principle called closure, which is where like a circle will be mostly closed, like it'll be like it'll be like 90% of a circle, and there'll be a little gap, but our brain will fill that in and we see a circle, even though it's not closed, so we shouldn't see it as a circle, but our brain fills it in. Do you remember that there's like an optical illusion, whereas there's that picture of like a cup, but you can also see it as two faces.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, yeah.
That's an
The
example.
whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's an example of like a gestalt principle and things like that.
Well, and that
There's
also
also that there's one more that I wanted to bring up because someone will get this reference, but there's a band called Rush.
yes.
And they have an album logo that I'm trying to find and desperately failing.
I'll get it for you.
And it's a perfect example of it in no way actually makes an outline of a triangle, but when you actually look at it, your brain will interpret it and go, oh, that's a triangle, even though there's no way that you should be able to do that. But basically, what I'm trying to say there is it's a principle where that proves that your brain fills in a lot of places, and so it doesn't need to see everything. It just takes patterns and
Yeah.
will look for the closest thing that it knows.
Well, that's like kind of all stems from pattern recognition, because our brains have kind of evolved to be able to recognize patterns more so than anything else. So, like for example, in this piece, we see the trees in the background, or whatever. They're auxiliary things to the piece, and because we've seen that type of pattern before, we automatically fill in, what we think should be there, which is pretty cool.
Another thing that has to do with gestalt is and the reason why our brains do this is so that we don't only associate something. Like if we see something, we're not going to only associate that one thing in the perfect environment that we saw it in. For example, a good example of that is fonts. Okay, there's so many different fonts out there, and when we see a new font, like we still recognize the letters in the font because we see certain patterns within. Like if you look at the letter A, if you type out the letter A in a bunch of different fonts, you'll still recognize that those are all A's and those are all the same thing. Again, it's just the same kind of principles working together. And that is a very long-winded explanation to be like, don't draw everything, because our brain will fill it in for you.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's also an awesome concept towards this piece too, pattern recognition and how our brain recognizes certain things that we've seen them before. It's also our brain's really good at recognizing certain colors and attaching emotions to colors or whatever. So in this piece, like you said, there's trees, and we've seen that pattern, so we recognize what trees are. But I mean, the trees are pretty innocuous, it's like they're pretty much just colors like thrown there with some like sort of circular tree top things on top of them, and then you got like the branches in the top left. But I mean, those are pretty messy, just loose out there, thrown on their like branch strokes. But it's gestural enough to where we see it and we recognize it as, oh, that's probably a tree branch. And then the colors are really awesome in this piece. I think that's my favorite thing about like Miano's works and stuff is just the colors that she throws in there and how she throws them on and throws stuff on top of it. And it's always really always really fun to look at, and it's always really expressive. And I think how do I word this? We were talking about like pattern recognition, and like there's things that our brain sees and associates other things with. And you mentioned it does it with like fonts and patterns, but also does it with emotions, and colors really, really help to attach certain emotions to things, especially in visual artwork. So in this piece, how we have all of the colors and like brushstrokes thrown on top of each other so loosely, we attach certain emotions to it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
I agree with you for sure, because I look at this piece and you've got the warm colors and it looks kind of happy, and it gives you this kind of warm feeling inside to look at it. And obviously other things are a factor that she's obviously smiling and things like that. But yeah, colors play a huge part in that.
Yeah, and that
Like go ahead.
but I was going to say that I think part of that also stems from like past experiences, which goes along with the pattern recognition stuff. Like for me, I always connect like autumn with like family time and like large meals with the family gathered, kind of like Thanksgiving meals. And so to me, it's always like a warm kind of feeling. And what triggers that is like the colors of a piece or of the outside, and like also smells and stuff like that. So
Yeah. Because like The biggest thing this piece has going for it is the colors and the hues and how things are all next to each other and how the colors, like we associate the colors when they're put next to each other, you know? So like the blues behind Applejack, how we see those next to the oranges, what like the orange Applejack is, and the greens in the bottom. And then you have like the light orange in the bush, and then you have that more like reddish orange in the background on the tree, and then like the deeper blue in the sky. Like how those all interact with each other and when put next to each other and when they touch and blend and whatever. That's everything about what this piece is about, you know, of how colors are interacting. And then the gestures of the brushstrokes too is really what lends things to this piece. So like how loose and crazy the outlines are on Applejack and how we see those. And, you know what I mean? They were clearly like made quickly, like concise gestures with the hand, and same thing in like the trees, how I was talking about that branch and how loose it is, and it's just like smears of brushstrokes and stuff. So everything's extremely expressive, and that's mainly what it's about.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
It's interesting. One more thing with this piece before we move on. It's interesting going back to the whole focus concept, because like you have the trees in the background, which have no outlines. They're just there, and then you have the bushes in the foreground, which have these really thick outlines. And the most detailed thing in this piece is Applejack, which is not really saying much because it's a very loose piece, but it's very similar to other pieces that have a specific focal point that don't use techniques like this, like if they use blurring for focus or whatever. This is just a different type of technique for a different type of piece. So
it does do really well to frame the subject too, with the bushes and the branches and the rope and all that. It is all going around the subject, really centralizing everything.
Yeah.
I have one more thing because I know we got to move on. But while we're talking about a piece that Meow Meow made last week, I made a request to the audience to guess about a piece last week, and I wanted to just say that don't worry, I'm going to get to it. We'll just do it at the very end, okay? So I will explain all of my logic last week at the very end.
Man, I was hoping you wouldn't say anything and then just like at the end say, "Oh yeah, guys, I didn't actually forget."
No.
That would have been better. Just saying.
But yes, I will talk about that at the end.
You would have had everyone on edge.
Yeah, right.
Well, another nice touch to this piece, it's really subtle, but it's worth noting. That blue I was talking about behind Applejack, look how where each part connects in her limbs and how it helps define it. So like look at the blue in front of her face, by her nose, by her eye, by her hair, and then like the blue where the tree is, where that orange and blue meet under her tail, how we see that and associate how things separate. It's something really cool to say, like how we think about art mentally and how we think about color mentally, and how it breaks up certain hues and things. I just really like that touch. But anyway.
Yeah. I really like Miano's style. So. Okay.
It's always really fun, well put together. Good colors.
Yeah. Okay, so we have to move on. Our next piece is called Big Mac on a Walk by Verastiper, I think. I hope.
Verastiper.
Yeah.
Yep, that's right.
It's a
mod of
crazy
MLP drawing school.
Ah.
Cool. It's very noteworthy.
Yeah.
Yes. I picked this piece.
Yeah, do you want to...
I picked the final two pieces, actually.
Do you want to jump right in?
Yeah, because they're more of the first things that we talked about were more of a focus on the ponies themselves, and I liked this piece and the next piece because it's more of a focus on the environment and the scenery of autumn, because autumn itself is, it's a time when it's a nature thing. It's not something that really happens to humans or ponies or something. It's something that happens to our surroundings. So in this piece in particular, this piece I wanted to bring up because of the lighting in particular, and the way that it was done in the forest. It's very interesting lighting that's used, because we don't see the light, what's causing the light to come in. We can guess that it's probably the sun, but at the same time, like there's dark backgrounds and you can't really see where it's coming from. So it was an interesting use of lighting, and it's also it looks like it's painted to me, doesn't it? Like it just looks so like someone actually dabbed it with a paintbrush. So I'm not
It
sure.
could be.
Yeah, I'm not sure if this is digitally done or
It
traditionally
is.
done, but it looks traditional.
It's digital.
It's digital.
Yeah.
But you're right. It looks like it could be physical, but it's not.
Well, there's a bit of a texture over the whole thing that kind of stands out in the rays of light. So you kind of see that behind it, but it is definitely digitally done. But the whole lighting in this piece is very well done because you have the light kind of streaming through the trees, and illuminating the path and Big Mac and all these bright orange colors and stuff. Really nice.
Yeah. I talked a little bit earlier about how in the Meow Meow piece, not all the leaves were drawn, and you don't have to draw all the leaves. And I think that's not necessarily what I meant by that. What I meant was, you don't have to always give all the details. And that can be interpreted in a couple different ways. The first way you could interpret it would be to not draw all the leaves. And so that's what was done by Meow Meow, and our brain fills in all the other leaves around it, But there's also this type here, and also the next one as well, where all the leaves are kind of shown, where, there is a lot of different leaves, and it's almost like you can see every single leaf, but the leaves themselves are not super detailed, and they don't have like an edge to them, So it's lacking detail, but in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, this is still very much an expressionist piece, as opposed to a realist or a realism piece, because like you said, the leaves are just kind of dabs of color,
Right.
But you still form them into leaves. But
Yeah, it's not quite, because the main important parts of the piece aren't really put into the color, and a lot of when you get something that's expressionistic, it's a lot more about expression. It's a lot more about going. How do I say that? Really
emotions, or
it's about conveying emotions, but two, it's about going over the top. That's what I'm looking for. It's about going over the top with colors.
Yeah.
So the colors themselves are really expressive. So like when you look at Miano's piece, obviously we wouldn't see colors like that in the real world, but they're close enough to where we associate them with certain emotions. But in a piece like this, everything is much more realistic. It's much closer to colors that we would associate with things that we can see in the real world. Like obviously this piece is still a little bit different than like a picture or something that we would see, because like stuff's in like the blue in the background, and then like the purple in the trees, but it's not quite there in a super expressive sense. But the brush work is still there in that he's not showing all of the details. He's just using brush techniques to express leaves and things like that.
Yeah. Which I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it kind of gives the background more of an expressive feel than, like, for instance, Big Mac, like the subject of the piece.
What do you mean by that?
Well, it's I mean, it's not two different styles necessarily, but there's more details obviously put into Big Mac because he's the focus of the piece. And I guess one could kind of say that he's a little bit more on the realistic side, whereas the background with the leaves and the trees and stuff like that is a little bit more on the expressionist side. Maybe. I don't know. Maybe I'm just making stuff up.
Well, I was just gonna say, is Big Mac the focus of this piece? Because my eye isn't drawn to him.
Yeah, I would argue.
I was actually gonna say that he's not.
Yeah, I would
No,
argue
he's
that
not. My eye is drawn to sort of all the bright leaves around him, and he's just there to give this a bit of depth. Like, to show you that it's like a forestry scene in Equestria and there's a pony walking through it. I mean, it might have a little bit more to do with that in Furistipa's mind, but to me, he's just there because to show that this is a landscape scene in Equestria. It's not something.
It's to give the piece a little bit of context and obviously to make it about ponies. But you're right in that he's not the subject and he's not the focus. The subject is about the piece as a whole. It's about this scene. It's about him walking. So it's about everything rather than just him. So he's not exactly the focus.
Would I be right in saying that Big Mac has the same value as the background? Like some of the background bits?
What do you mean value? You mean as in light dark?
Yeah.
No.
new.
Well, there's not a lot of huge value shifts in the piece. There obviously is, but it's not super like over the top in value. Like Meowno had 0 value. It's all about color and hue. This one has a little bit, but he's not super separated from the background and how dark he is. He is a little bit darker, but he's not like really dark.
Like obviously, there's always
going
going to be like a shift in value,
Yeah.
because you can't just paint a piece. You can't just somehow paint a piece with one value. You'd have to consciously do that. But so there's a lot of subtle things, but the value in this piece isn't done on purpose for whatever reason. It's not it's not a big factor within him, at least.
There's definitely a shift there, because something that God, I can't even pronounce his name. The artist. Something that he definitely had in mind was that sense of kind of atmospheric perspective and things getting lighter as they go back. So you can definitely get that sense as you look into the background. But the term for it is there isn't a huge contrast there. There's not a huge shift in value there, but it is there just slightly.
Right.
But
right.
As far as what Flutterguy was referring to as like expressionistic or realism, like I wouldn't put this one easily into one realm or the other. But I would say that his brushwork and the leaves and stuff are very expressive. But I might avoid the term expressionistic, because he's not really trying to convey some kind of emotion in the piece. Like in Meowno's work, we definitely associate some kind of emotions with those colors and how expressive the brushwork is, because it's super expressive. In this one, there is a little bit of expression and kind of how he paints things very loosely, but it's definitely not... You can't really tell the context in which it was made, if it was like quick or slow or sloppy or whatever. It's a little bit more hidden. But it's definitely obvious he's not trying to convey realism clearly. So
Yeah.
I wouldn't put this in one realm over the other.
Yeah.
Vera Stupor has an interesting style when you look through his gallery. It's not really present in this piece in particular, but if people want to go check him out on the side, he has a very, very detailed, I would say, very, very detailed version of his ponies. He enjoys putting a lot of details into things such as fur and hair and making them very, very detailed. I personally, that's not really my style. I don't really, that's not really what I kind of look for in a pony piece. However, his attention to detail and his attention to giving those extra details makes his backgrounds and his landscapes quite beautiful. And this is a perfect example of that. And I know there's a couple more that I might want to bring up in the future that have some pretty amazing backgrounds that I think is his strong point. Yeah,
definitely. The term I like to use for his work is it's really interesting, because it's really super different and it's extremely unique as far as like the digital artists and art that I see. Because, I mean, he's making it for reasons that are his own. He clearly enjoys making it, but it's always... It's just extremely different than everything else I've seen. There's actually another piece that I want to bring up that's relevant to the point you made and how he has really good backgrounds. And this one, again, looks kind of like an autumn piece, but it's called Fall in the Whitetail Wood. And it has Applejack again going on some kind of walk. And the whole subject of the piece is basically this path she's carrying on. So the context in this is that Applejack walking down this path. But this piece is much more expressive. It's much more expressionistic than the piece we were just looking at. So this piece, everything within the colors and the brushwork, everything is a little bit more over the top, a little bit more expressive. There's a little bit more there to look to and attach to, and how colors and things interact with each other. So this would be be an example of something a little bit in that realm, Flutterguy, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that totally makes sense.
And this one, you can tell Applejack also blends in with the background much more, so the background is the focus of this one.
Yeah, it's like if you look at the piece that we were looking at versus this one, if you look at them as a whole, then yeah, I can definitely see where this is a lot more expressionistic or full of expressions and stuff than the last piece. But
very
okay,
cool work.
Yeah, definitely a cool artist. Definitely go check him out. Go on.
Good guy to learn from. So go to reddit.com/r/MLP Drawing School.
Yeah,
that was almost English.
Yeah, he's done hundreds of critiques for people in that community.
Yes.
So,
yeah.
bravo.
Good guy.
Yep. Okay, so our next piece is called Le Forêt Foudre by 244705.
Which means the lightning forest in French.
You Googled that, didn't you?
Yes, about 10 minutes ago.
Yeah, you did.
So this was the other one that I was mentioning, and it's similar to the last one we had in that it's very focused in the environment of autumn. And honestly, this might not be an autumn piece, but it's okay because it looks like it. So, but I really wanted to bring this one up because this was yet another example of what I was saying before, which is different types of leaving out detail. So in this piece, when you look at the leaves themselves, there are a lot of leaves. There are a tremendous amount of leaves, but each leaf is only one color. And that's where the detail is missing, is in the actual leaves themselves. So it's a different way of leaving out detail, and our brain will fill in those little tiny details and make us understand that they're leaves. And so this piece is just another good example of that.
Because
Hey,
this piece... Goop?
Plasma, it's look at the size. It's wallpaper size.
I know. It's beautiful.
That's why you
More
wanted to
people should
feature this
that.
piece, isn't it?
Exactly. That was the only reason, is because it was 1080p exactly.
This piece is, it's autumny. I'd say it's very autumny because of the yellow in the leaves. But again, like you were saying, the leaves are done in a way, they're done with some kind of technique. Like, technically, they're all, like, you can see each individual leaf, but he didn't go illustrate every single leaf. He used a brush. In this one, he used a digital brush. So, like, when you're working traditionally, there's certain brushes you can use and techniques you can do to draw leaves or whatever, or paint leaves. But in this piece, he didn't go out of his way to draw every little bloody leaf on every single tree. Mm-hmm. He used some kind of digital brush that was a bunch of leaves. So you can definitely see the repeated pattern of leaves.
Yeah.
And then he used a technique where he layered the colors. So he did the darker colors of the leaves first, and then put the lighter yellows on top of that, which gives us this sense of depth and layering where the lighter color leaves are on top. Because even in real life, we see that, where the light hits the leaves on top and makes them more yellow than the leaves underneath. So on and so forth. It's
a really creative use of medium by using these brushes in a program that I'm assuming is going to be something like Photoshop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. If I had to guess, I would guess Photoshop.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know any other program that will allow you to create custom brushes like that.
I'm sure there must be
There's
one.
Random
but the most
complex
common one will probably be Photoshop.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But there's
Something
like two others, but they're really expensive.
Something else with this one, again, the character, so Lightning Dust, blends in with the background again, because you can tell the artist 244705 has made the colors of this piece match her exactly. Like that fades out into that really light cyan, which is the same color as her, and the leaves and all that stuff around her.
I love it.
All her hair color.
Yeah.
That is a really cool touch, how the background and the environment matches the pony. I like that.
Yeah, there's two main colors in there, and it just matches up so perfectly. I love it.
Mm-hmm. It's an interesting way
genius idea
of showing depth, because you do have a slight value shift just along the path, but for the most part, depth is conveyed by the change in colors, I think. So
yeah,
definitely.
It's kind of cool.
Yeah,
it's conveyed by the change in colors and then kind of the change in saturation.
Mm-hmm. That's right. You get some atmospheric perspective going on there because you do have that change in saturation and stuff. So go on.
I think it's a good thing too. I was gonna say it gives a very cool, almost tunnel-like sense, and that the path where she's walking, and then the stuff around her is kind of dark, but behind her it gets lighter. So when I look at this piece, I kind of picture that she's walking through this forest, and where that blue is kind of like an open area because of how bright the blue is behind the trees. But when you look on the path directly behind the pony, you can see that it gets kind of a darker blue and like a little circle almost, and how the trees and the lines are actually bending over that kind of area, giving that sense that it's almost like a tunnel, like going through the forest, like a path going through the forest. And like,
so it's
go ahead.
I was saying, so it's sort of like framing. It's framing it.
Yeah, it's definitely framing her a little bit, but it's also creating this sense that there is some kind of darkness there, and there's some kind of path, because I've walked on a lot of paths and parks, and when there is that, the pathway that you walk on, there's no trees there, and the trees go like over the top of it and create that darker area around it or whatever, and it's shown really well in this piece. It's cool. It's a nice effect of how the turquoise around it and up in the top gives that sense that there's like a little area that she's walking through.
I really love how this piece it may not be quote unquote a realistic piece because of a lot of the colors that are used are not necessarily realistic colors that would be in the environment, but it's obviously a nature scene. It's supposed to convey some sort of natural environment, even if it's only natural to the world of ponies. It's still supposed to convey some sort of natural environment, like a forest of some sort. And the way that the artist has done that is by using very, very unnatural means with like the leaf brushes and having, these overlays done. And also there's a lot of texture. For example, just look at the path around lightning dust.
Yeah, I really like that.
Yeah, there's like a weird texture, blotted texture thing down there, and you can look at the ground and it's the same thing. And it's really interesting how this artist has used such unnatural means to create such a natural looking piece. If you get what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of neat how the whole piece seems to be made up of different textures, from the leaves to the path to the ground to even the sky a little bit. And it all kind of comes together in a piece that really looks correct.
It's because there's so many textures there that it's basically like flooding our senses, sort of. So because the whole piece is all using different textures, it makes the piece seem very unified. It makes it seem very whole, and it makes sense because since everything is made with the same kind of technique of different brushes and different patterns and textures, since everything is that way, it gives us the sense that everything kind of makes sense or is more like realistic-ish because it's so busy, and there's different, like we were saying earlier, there's different techniques that the artist has used to make things make sense and all come together. But it's because everything is using that and everything's using different techniques that everything does seem to come together. But it's very well done.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so one last piece before we move on to questions. This is Piles of Leaves Are Fun for Every Pony by Otaku AP, who is an amazing fan of our show. And we just wanted
to just give a little shout out to him,
just kind of touch on this piece. He does a lot of autumn pieces, or he's done a couple of autumn pieces, and they're really nice. So,
I mean, the reality is that there's a lot of artists out there that we can't feature because a lot of their pieces don't necessarily lend themselves to the show. There's definitely, and people have noticed this, but there's definitely a style of art that is easier for us to kind of talk about in the show. And unfortunately, Otaku AP's art, for the most part, the longer we go on, the more art is getting more and more kind of inclined towards our show. But a lot of his art is very cute and very just, like this. This is just a wonderful forest scene in here. And so it's unfortunate, but a lot of Otaku AP's pieces don't necessarily lend ourselves to quite the same amount of analysis that we would give to other pieces. But that doesn't mean that they deserve any less love from us. So we wanted to give a shout out.
Because our goal on the show is to feature and highlight artwork that we feel that other people can look at and learn something from, and that we can look at and we can kind of dissect. And there's something greater there that we can really look at and like teach others and show others and lend things for others to look at and acknowledge. And Otaku AP's artwork is adorable and it's amazing and it's been getting progressively better. But he's just like every other artist that like are watching our show and wanting to learn. He's been watching our show and he's been learning, and his art has been really coming together and really like getting there in terms of just like now we can look at his art more and more and learn things from the stuff he creates. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
His leaves, like the piles of leaves, and also the leaves on the trees, are all classic examples of that selective detail that we were talking about earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Also,
big blobs of color with little leaves. Go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
Also, he has a moth.
No, you stole my thing. I was going to say burned.
It's so
burned.
smiley.
Yes.
Burned.
Yes.
Zoom in on the moth face.
It's so smiley looking.
It's adorable.
And without
Looks so
further
fuzzy.
ado, question time.
Questions? Yeah. Okay, first question. I figured that in images where the ponies are drawn fluffy, they actually look more like cats than actual ponies. Do you prefer these? Sent in by somebody whose username I can't pronounce, but I'm going to try anyway. Relgook Xylef.
Relguxalef.
That's pretty close, you know.
Man, what a username.
Yeah, right.
So what he and or she is trying to say is that when we've given examples of fluffy ponies before, and his or her theory is that the reason why we like them might be because they look more like kitties. So do we prefer? I suppose the basic question is, do we like fluffy ponies or non-fluffy ponies, or do we all like them all the same? You know, which one do you like more?
Ponies. I like fluffy ponies.
I'm indecisive. I like both equally. But ponies, at least on the show, do tend to lend themselves to looking like other animals when they're drawn in different ways. Like I've seen the ponies where they look like like foxes or dogs or deer even or cats. So
When you see like Twilight scratching herself like a dog, you know.
yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And like when I think it was Applejack or Twilight, one of them shook like a dog as well.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, they have a lot of different.
But I was
like that.
I was gonna say the ponies on the show, I like them, and then we get ponies and fanart that are fluffy. I love those as well. But what I was gonna say is ponies in the show aren't really, in my eyes, they're not really ponies. I mean, they are ponies because it's ponies, but in my head, they're not ponies. They're too human to be ponies for me.
Well, I've always made the distinction to people that there's a difference between ponies and horses, and not like the difference that we have. It's not the difference, you know, because there are actual ponies. They're like miniature horses in real life. But when I say
aren't horses here.
when I say horses versus pony, when I say horses, I mean horses in our world, and when I say ponies, I mean like My Little Ponies. Not this. I know that they were trying to make the same distinctions. They've got similarities. Totally not the same species. If these were in our world, they would not be considered the same species. They'd only be considered similar. That's like saying humans and apes are the same thing. You know, it's different.
They're very much cartoon characters. They're cartoon beings. Like they're things that are made to be cute, that somewhat resemble the anatomy of a horse or a pony, but they're just cartoon characters. I mean, as we can see, the animators make them act like dogs and stuff, where they'll like scratch their ear or shake the water off and stuff, because those things are cute and we associate them with other cute animals. And I mean, and ponies do extremely human things, like when they stand up or whatever. But they're cartoon, they're cartoon ponies.
Yeah.
So, another classic example of this is, even though it doesn't talk, Toothless from How to Train a Dragon. He's very much a cat, even though he's a dragon.
Yeah, he has cat-like qualities because we associate those with kitties, and it's cute. So we associate those behaviors with being cute.
Yeah.
Also, Toothless is adorable. I saw a great thing on DeviantArt about it.
Exactly, there you go.
Yeah, he's so cute.
So ponies have a lot of cartoon qualities that we associate with being cute. It's not so much that it's like, oh, cartoon horses, oh yeah. We just say that because we like being satirical.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
So
I mean,
to answer the actual question, holy cow.
one more thing, like going off of that, is that you'll often see in a lot of cartoons that are trying to be cute the same kind of thing, where it doesn't necessarily have to be ponies, but it could be a completely different species. And in order to try and make that character cute, the animators or the storyboarders or whoever will put in qualities from other animals that are supposed to be adorable. So it's not just limited to My Little Pony.
Example, Toothless from How to Train a Dragon.
Yeah.
For example, Pinkie Pie in the Nightmare Night episode.
She's a chicken.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I'm not. I'm a chicken. Okay, second question. If you could draw your
No!
next...
No! Shut up! I sat here freaking patiently while we talked about this, so you guys could talk about it.
But
We didn't
you
even answer the
talked.
question.
I thought you had answered your question.
No!
Go on.
The actual question was, do you prefer fluffy ponies or not, or both? So, how about we go around the wonderful little nice round table
We
and
super
actually
politic
answer
that
the bloody
question.
question?
Well, me and
So
Father Guy
hard.
answered, so no.
Oh, okay then. Let's move
That's
on.
all that matters.
Duh.
So, you
The two
said
that
you
don't
prefer
talk
fluffy
get to talk
ponies.
this time.
Flutter Guy said he doesn't care. Burned, how about you?
Me? Yeah. I figured the images of ponies are
Okay. And Rainbow Plasma?
I
I like
don't
fluff- I like
really
fluffy ponies.
have an opinion.
Cool. Then you're neutral. That sounds good. All right. I like
very
fluffy
neutral
ponies.
of you.
Sweet. All right. The
What'd you
question was
say?
actually
I didn't hear
answered.
what you said.
Yeah.
Okay,
Oh.
next question now.
Wait, no,
Can
I
go
have an
now? Can
answer now.
Oh, for God's sakes.
So, what is it? Oh, so they make ponies more fluffy and they look more like cats because it's ridiculous. And fluffy cats look ridiculous.
That's not
I
the
prefer.
question.
Yes, it
That's the
is.
question.
I prefer normal ponies because they're just not as over the top and ridiculously fluffy.
Okay.
Cool.
They're simple
Okay.
and cute.
Absolutely cool.
Wait, no, I have more.
No, shut up.
I'm just kidding.
Go on to the next question.
So how do you feel about fluff?
No, shut up. Go on to the next question.
Next question.
If you could draw your next piece with only one crayon, what color crayon would that be? Sent in by Lycan. And they spelled the word color with the U in it, which means they are not American, so I like you already.
What kind of question is that? What?
I choose.
If you were to create a monochrome piece, what color would it be?
I choose Crayola's
Also in crayon.
macaroni and cheese.
That's a color?
That's a
It
crayon.
is the color. Yeah.
What?
Sweet.
I just
Yeah.
want to eat the crap out of that crayon.
I know. It looks
Right.
I
like
just want to shove
macaroni
that
and
wax
cheese.
in my mouth. Everyone's gonna look at me weird.
Did you guys
and
ever
like, what?
eat crayons? I've eaten a crayon.
I
have
know.
not.
I tried
No.
and it was
Okay.
terrible.
Anyways.
so.
All right, cool. Well,
I was a very smart child.
so isn't this basically just what's your favorite color?
But it's
no,
Crayola.
not exactly.
Not necessarily, because there's like different names for the colors, like Crayola.
I like to think this is a very introspective question because we associate colors of crayons sometimes with silly names like Periwinkle, or if in Futterguy's case, mac and cheese. And then someone like Bernd may look at a crayon and be like, well, you know what? A wax crayon has different textures than other mediums, so you know what? Maybe this specific color behaves differently.
All right.
Did
all
you
right,
did you
Bernd.
just refer to yourself as that person?
Bernd, stop. First of all, stop. Second of all, okay, I've posted a Wikipedia article that says the list of Crayola crayon colors. We are all going to pick one, and that will be our answer, and there'll be no more debate about this, all right?
Click. List of Crayola crayons.
For example,
Holy bunk.
Flutter Guy, you said macaroni and cheese. That is color number 56.
Yep.
Yay.
Wisteria's a color?
Yeah, it is.
Shamrock, sepia, sea green.
So for
Screaming
example,
green.
so for example, my one would probably be burnt orange.
Man, there are some
Yay.
great color names in here.
Oh,
Burnt
yeah, there are.
orange.
Yeah.
Fuzzy Wuzzy,
Outrageous
Inchworm,
orange.
Jazzberry Jam.
All right. What's
Orchid,
your actual
maroon,
answer?
mahogany, maze,
Can we stop reading a Wikipedia article, please? Just pick one.
carnation,
Purple
pink,
Pizzazz,
All right.
Screaming Green.
blizzard blue, asparagus. Ew, that's a gross color.
White.
Wild blue yonder.
White.
That one's pretty good.
Just keep
I
reading.
think I want to go. I didn't even know.
Mountain meadow. So many choices, Atmospark. How do we choose?
I
need
don't
new
know. How
friends.
do we choose?
Look at that. Macaroni and cheese. There it is. Number 56.
Yep.
Oh, wait, you already
Really?
said that.
Yeah.
So it
Mango Tango 62.
Neon Carrot.
What is that? Malvolous? That's not marvelous. It's
No, it's Malvolous.
I know you
Malvolous?
guys are doing this on purpose, but I
I
don't
want
think you
that one.
understand how much I want to tear your throats out.
I picked number 64,
What's
aka
number 64?
EF98AA, Malvolous.
Marvelous.
It looks like a gross color of pink. So the color of my esophagus.
It's a play on words from mauve
whatever.
/ marvelous. Because
I get
mauve
it.
is a color.
All right. Well, that was a question. So that's it for the questions. There remains one thing left in this episode.
Twilight's butt!
Besides,
butt.
there you go. Yes. So Twilight's butt, which I've managed to lose the link to. So
I don't
let
even
me
know
just-
why it's black.
Let me just get that. All right. So I talked to you guys last week, and we mentioned this piece by Meow called Twilight Sparkle. And we mentioned last
got a
week
black
that there is a
badonkadonk.
black outline around Twilight's butt. And Byrne couldn't figure out why, and I asked the audience to figure it out. And
Why,
I
Rainbow
I
Phasmo?
didn't actually take a poll about this or anything, but I'm just gonna. If you figured this out before I'm about to say it, then
We just
good
wanted
on
to
you.
make you critically think about Twilight's butt.
Just say it.
Pat on the back. All right, so
Just say it.
the reason why there is a black outline around it is because if you look at the colors of the bed versus the colors of Twilight's, well, her butt, they are very similar. If there was no black outline around it, then it would not stand out from the bed. However, why didn't she just use like one of the lighter outlines. Well, if you make it a lighter outline, then it takes the focus away from the face, and the whole point of the focus was supposed to be these lighter outlines around the face. So the reason why it's darker is because Meow Meow wanted to separate it from the bed, which was a very similar color, but didn't want the butt to be a focus. So there you go. That is
I
why
like
there's
the point
a
about
black outline.
how the butt not being the focus, because there's also lines in the tail, which
Yeah.
attracts attention there.
Mhm.
But it being black,
But-
it does really tend to recede.
Yes, it does. It does recede into the background and managed to separate but not stand out.
It's very conserved.
Yeah.
So that is the reason why that one in particular seems so randomly black. But so yeah, there you go.
Yay.
We should contact her and be like, did you forget to color her butt?
Anyways, that is the mystery solved from last week. So pat yourself on the back if you thought that as well, because there you go.
Yay.
Thank you, Teacher Rainbow Plasma.
Yay.
You're welcome.
Senpai.
Yay!
Burned Sama. I don't know.
Knowledge is power.
All right. Well.
I
Good
learned something today.
morning, Miss Plasma.
Oh,
Oh,
learn
jeez.
all right.
something today?
Atmo, do you want to
Plugs.
do the
I learned
plugs?
something
Okay, I'll
today.
do plugs.
Sweet.
So we have a DeviantArt page, which is cutieartcrusaders.deviantart.com. We have a Facebook, which is Cutie Art Crusaders. Like us on that. We have a Twitter, which is @CutieArtCrusade. YouTube, which is youtube.com/CutieArtCrusaders. And a Gmail account, which is cutieartcrusaders@gmail.com. Go there, do stuff.
Yay.
Yeah, do
Alrighty
that,
then.
because we like ourselves, and you should like us too.
I know on Facebook.
Yeah.
My
Fantastic.
mom says I'm special.
Nah, well, she's wrong, but you know. All
My
right.
mom could kick your mom's butt.
Oh well, this is awkward.
What are we in
all
elementary
right.
school?
Well, thank you guys for watching. That is it for
Theme.
this week. Next, every week.
I
I know.
Go right into
I'm
the.
just doing an order.
Yeah.
I have an order to things.
I always
What
And
is
every
your
week
order?
it
You should
changes
know by now.
after I say
always
something.
sucks.
I always.
If
If it's
Okay.
every week, you should know it by now.
I know, but
So
I
what's
always
the
think.
order?
I always think that you're going right into the sign off, and then.
All right, fine. You know what? Keep this in burned, and we're going to discuss this right now.
All right.
Would you like to do it before I do that little part about the live stream? Then.
Yeah.
Would you like to do
yeah,
that?
Yeah.
All right. So how about from now on, whenever he does the plugs, afterwards you can pop in with the theme. Sounds good.
That sounds great.
Sounds good.
Fantastic.
Yay! Theme here, right here.
Wait. So wait, what was the order that you wanted or were doing before? You do the sign off thing and then say, "Hey,
No.
the theme." What?
No.
I
I
don't
was
understand.
the order that I was gonna have before is I say like my normal thing, which is like thank you guys for watching, whether or not you're on the live stream or on YouTube.
Oh,
blah,
yeah,
blah, blah.
see, no,
and
I-
then
See,
you would
no,
say the
see,
theme
no,
for
that's-
next week is that.
See, that's a sign off. You do
That-
stuff before
yeah.
the sign off.
Yeah, that just confused
See,
me.
that's why we always
Sorry.
get confused because that's the thing that means that the show's done because the music in the background has been playing by now,
Yeah.
and then you're like, and Flutter Guy's no wait theme.
According to how this episode has gone so far, the music probably isn't even playing right now because you're probably gonna keep talking for another 10 minutes.
They've been trying to get us off the stage for the past like 5.
I've been trying to get. I'm on the stage and I'm trying to get you guys off the stage.
We're recording and I hear the music in my head.
Hey, Burn, put the theme on the screen now. On
Yeah.
the screen now.
Already
But do
done
it in the color alien armpit because that's now my favorite Crayola color.
You're gonna have to link that in the chat.
Will do.
Alrighty then.
The number.
It's a hex code
I
84DE02.
want the hex code, you dungus. I want the number to the crayon in a link.
There is no
Thank you
number.
guys
It's
for
in the silly
watching.
sense. Like
Whether or
scroll
not
down.
you're on the live stream or on YouTube, we love you all the same. My name is Rainbow Plasma,
Umbrella 1!
I'm Flutterguy 317.
I'm Scratch and Sniff.
and we'll see you guys next week.
Bye!
Bye.
Bye.
I hate all of you.